Hi, our fourth three-year cycle of the Gospel Project begins on September 5th, 2021, and will become available around May or June for purchase. In this cycle, we are going to feature a number of updates and improvements that we believe will really be helpful for you. And we're excited about what is in store. So we wanted to talk a little bit about something that is coming. And today we're talking about new art. All of our Bible story art for the next cycle will be brand new, which is really exciting. A lot of work, but we're really excited about that. So my name is Brian Dembowczyk. I am the managing editor and leader of the kids team. And joining me today is Heath Tyrell. He is the team's graphic designer, and Heath McPherson, who is the primary artist. For a while, Heath, have you been the sole artist for times with the Gospel Project, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I think this is this is the fourth round. I've been
Yeah.
here from day one, doing a lot of artwork.
Yeah, but this one we have some other people helping because it's been so much. Some other people are helping color. You're doing the sketches, which we'll talk about the process in a minute. But is this the first time you have worked with others on the Bible art itself?
Yeah, this is the
Okay.
first time that I've done mainly the primary the sketches, and then handed off these sketches to other artists to color.
So the first three cycles, you've done it all. You've done the sketches and then full coloring.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah. So if you haven't figured it out, so Keith, and I'm going to really have to be careful with Keith and Heath in this one. So we'll see how well I can enunciate. But Keith is on our team. He is part of our Lifeway team. Heath, we work with as a contractor. So he does not work for Lifeway. We contract with him to do these things. So Heath, again, we kind of already started talking about your story, but tell us a little bit more before we go any further. I want to hear a little bit about you, your family, anything you might want to say, where you're from. I don't know what your favorite food is, whatever. And then a little bit of how you connected to Lifeway in general, and then the Gospel Project.
Sure. Um, like Brian said, my name is Heath McPherson. I've been working as a freelance illustrator for 17 years. After I graduated college, I got a portfolio together and started submitted to places to find work. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and so I took a drive up to Nashville to Lifeway, and you guys liked my work and started sending me projects to work on, and so I've been doing that ever since, along with other publishing companies. And so yeah, I've been just staying busy as a freelancer. The Lord's provided, work for me to do. I work out of the house. I'm in my studio, and I work in primarily Photoshop and Illustrator. And when I'm working, sometimes the boys that come in, I'll be in deep concentration on getting a project done. And my wife and I have two boys, 10 and 7, and they'll come in, they'll want to see the work that I'm working on. And what's fun for me is our church uses the Lifeway curriculum, and so they get kind of early sight on what I'm working on. So I'll kind of run it past them. What do you think about this project, this illustration? Is this working? Is this a fun activity for your friends and you to work on? And so whenever it comes out at church, they already know all the answers. They already know, where the hidden objects are. So it's just
You
been fun
tell
for
them
me.
not to ruin it for everybody else. Like,
I try
like
not to
my kids.
spoil it.
Yeah, we told our kids from the day one that Santa Claus was not real, but we always said, but you can't ruin that for other
Yeah,
kids.
yeah, same here.
Santa
Like,
Claus
listen,
is not real.
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry.
to break it to
Heath,
you.
I've been meaning to break that to you.
Ah, man.
So Heath, you mentioned something just a second ago, the activity. So just to be clear, not only do you do the Bible story art, you do the activity page art as well.
Correct. Yeah, so I do a lot of the really all of the activity for the activity pages for the three products, the older, the preschool, and the younger. And so the kids get to come in, I get to do a test run on them, and I do have to say, listen, don't give me away any spoilers. Try to go through it. And, they're hard critics. My wife is too, especially on this new round of the Gospel Project, biblical illustrations.
Yeah.
My wife comes in, she's like, you need to create more different hairstyles and patterns, and that hand is too big. This is so I've got a team here. I mean, y'all do your work giving me the art descriptions, but I have a really particular team here that kind of critiques me and makes me a better artist as well.
Outstanding. I didn't know your wife was kind enough to help us out in that regard.
She does. Yeah.
So you just, at that point, you just say, yes, ma'am.
I do. Yeah. And I'll say, listen, I'm going to try this out. I've never illustrated this before. And she's like, they're going to reject it. And then sure enough, I'll get a note back from Heath saying the exact same thing. And she's like, I told you. So
for the record, I generally love every single thing that comes from you. But I always have to let the team review it, and then I'll take what they say and filter it. Yeah. But a lot of times I'm like, I think this person would have no sleeves. They're working with a fire kiln. Surely they would be sleeveless, but
yeah,
it's one of those.
That's what makes these illustrations and makes this product just better, because there's a big team working on it.
Yeah,
a lot of brains, a lot of talented folks that strive for creativity and biblical accuracy too.
Yeah, and this is a challenge I want us to talk about. Keith, why don't you take a minute, introduce yourself, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then why don't you kind of walk us through? We've been hinting at the process, but let's kind of, just for those watching so they can understand a little bit more clearly, to kind of walk them through the process from start to finish. And then I want us to take some time, Heath, probably focus more on you, of talking about some of the challenges and joys of doing Bible art specifically, and maybe some of the images that you have resonate with the most and so forth, and just have some time talking about the content itself. But Keith, introduce yourself and then help us understand the process that we go through.
All right. I'm Heath Tyrell. A lot of people in the South say Tyrell, but it's actually Tyrell. Not to be confused with Heath, but okay. So I've been with Lifeway, I think, 24 years now, I believe. I came right out of college. I've been working on the Gospel Project team actually since the first go around. I helped develop the app, and so I worked on it, and then I came full time on the team on the second go around. And so, yeah, so thoroughly enjoy the Gospel Project. It's funny, I grew up in the church, and I never really put it together that the entire Bible was centered on the gospel of Jesus. I think I made that realization in my early 20s. So, like I said, grew up in the church. I was a bed baby. It's just wild that never made that determination, realization. So, but as for our artwork, it's pretty interesting. Our biblical artwork, we actually started this maybe 2 years ago. Started talking about it. I was like, hey guys, we really need to get on this. We're going to have 150 plus new pieces. We need to figure out what stories. I kept pushing. Brian kept saying, we don't know what stories yet. I kept pushing once we got this, which stories we're going to do, because we then need art suggestions. So the team will get together and they'll come up with art suggestions. And it's not easy for 150 plus, because we want to be biblically accurate. We read the scripture to see what it says. We try to figure out what we're going to be talking about, what the lesson's going to be about, and all of that. And so it's
and none of that is written yet. Just to be clear, we just kind of have the general concept that we're going to be looking at a passage, and sometimes it's a very broad passage, like Joseph. We're just talking about the life of Joseph, and so we have to guess what aspect, because we don't want to have something illustrated that doesn't make the story that we share.
Yeah, exactly. So once we get to that part where we actually have what we call art suggestions, I'll then contact Heath, assign it to him. He has access to the document that has all the information, the biblical references, and all of that. Great thing about Heath is he uses this. curriculum. He also does his own background research. And so that's what typically would happen. He would then sketch it out, send the sketch to me. I would send it to the team, and we would then dissect it. And we'll come back with things like the proportion isn't right here. We need to make sure this person is here. Make sure this person looks Middle Eastern. We've been really trying to refocus in on making sure everything is, all the people are represented well. They look of Middle Eastern descent, not European. Mm-hmm. So that's typically how we work. Then we'll send it back to Heath. He'll do some corrections, and generally he would then move it to final where he would color it on out. But in this go around, we kind of hit a snag. And so I don't know if this is where you want to talk about our new process. What say you, Brian?
Yeah, let's talk about that in 1 second. First, a quick question to Heath. Heath, about how long does it take you to do one illustration?
That's a great question. One illustration from initial concept, like Heath said, I'll get the art description and I'll read through it, look at the biblical, the scripture reference, and do some thumbnail sketches of what I want the composition to look like. And just trying to figure out the where I want to move the eye. You can arrange figures and different things in the picture to lead the eye to a certain focal point. So I try to find that focal point that's going to best communicate the story and support the objective of the picture. And then I'll do a pass, a quick pass in Photoshop, and just really lightly trying to figure out where I want the darks and lights, light to make it dynamic. And that's been one thing that has been a challenge for me as an illustrator is trying to make it very cinematic and dynamic, and emotionally engaging too, but still accurate, biblically accurate. And so I'll look at different movies, films, and I really try to compose these like a film, like you're watching a movie. And so just through that process, and to answer your question, I would say from start to finish, I can have a sketch done probably, from morning to like a little after lunch for one sketch. To finish the whole thing out in color, that may take at least a good 2 days to finish it out. And that's working from start to finish. I mean,
so you're looking at 3 days or so per image. 150 plus images. I just want people to understand there's a lot of work and a tight window because, as Keith was describing, we have our hands tied until a certain point. So let me come back because Heath, I think you have achieved that cinema feel amazingly well. That's one comment that we've heard back from showing these images already to some people, that it feels like a movie kind of thing. So good job on that. Keith, let's go back and talk about why all new art? Why did we want to stress Heath this much? Because usually what we'll do is we'll look at the cycle and say, of the 150 some odd stories, let's keep a certain number, maybe 50, and we'll do 100 new and just kind of keep some. But this one, we said all new. What was our thinking in that? You've already kind of hinted at some of our goals. Why did we do that? And then you can talk about this new process with completing our images.
Well, why we did that? That's a great question. In the last 3 volumes, some of the artwork, there might be 1 or 2 we've actually used in all 3 to a certain extent. And so we felt like with the 4th volume, we really needed to make a fresh change. What we wanted to achieve here is, we wanted to make sure we were more biblically accurate in how people looked. When people think of Jesus, a lot of times they think of the old image. I can see the image of Jesus from when I was a kid. It's
I can see that too.
Yeah, he looks European, Caucasian, and we want to be as biblically accurate as we can. We don't know what Jesus looked like, but drawing from the time period and the region and all of that, we know that he would have certain features, and the other people would have certain features as well. We wanted to make sure we were portraying women correctly for the region, and not stylized to look. I don't want to say Barbie-like because but basically stylized to something that's not accurate. Also, we kind of wanted to move more into a realistic look, not completely, because Heath's been our main illustrator. Heath is what I call our branded illustrator. The brand, the look is branded around his style. So we needed to maintain our branded look, but kind of push it a little bit more toward the realistic style. And also, as Heath mentioned, kind of more of a cinematic style as well. I mean, some of these images, when you see them, you're just kind of blown away. A lot of times we'll get sketches in, and my first thought is I can't wait to see this in final color. I'm thinking of one right now that I can't wait to see it in final color. I believe it's the Armor of God sketch. But in this new go around, as we were, pushing Heath here and there, saying, "Hey, can we try this? Can we try that?" He's got to that style. It's kind of out of his comfort zone, but he was able to achieve what we wanted. But like he said, from one start to finish, it takes 3+ days, particularly in this new style, start to finish. And so we quickly made a decision to try a different work style, basically one that's more Disney-esque, if you will, where he is our branded illustrator. He concepts out the image, sketches it out, and then we bring in another illustrator. Actually, we have a couple other illustrators that we've kind of worked with to try to fine tune to make sure the look all stays the same. I will say it's been working pretty good. Heath has done a fantastic job because with each sketch, a lot of people don't know this, he actually puts in research material to show, this is what I'm thinking about the lighting. This is what I'm thinking about the color. This is how this character should look. So he's actually putting in extra research to help our colorists, which has been invaluable.
So
go ahead.
If anybody's trying to do the math, let me help you out. So if, about 3 days per sketch, let's say optimistic 2 a week, just for simplicity, that means in 1 year, that's 100 sketches or so, so a year and a half. Heath working full time, and you do other things. This is not all you do.
That's right.
So in theory, we would have to have you dedicate a full year and a half to do a full cycle of illustrations, which is just why Keith is explaining we had to go to a different plan to make this work, or else. And we need all the art up front because it appears on the giant timeline.
Heath would never sleep.
Heath would never sleep. So
I would never get to see my kids, even though they're a door away from me.
And also we still have the activity pages.
Yes.
Those are the items that we want to make engaging for children and fun and exciting. And for Heath, we're not pushing the style of those, since this is more for the kids' activities and all. And so he loves doing the activity pages. Those are fun. Some of the stuff he comes up with, I just laugh and chuckle because I'm like, yeah, I think I know where he got an idea for that. And then there's other stuff like find the silly stuff in the image. I'm like, okay, that's just hilarious, So
and again, just to be clear, we're still producing the end of our cycle 3 content. It's not like we have this break and nothing to do and say, well, here, let's fill it. This is so, again, I hope what people watching are seeing the challenges of this. And just so when they're seeing that art, I think it just adds, hopefully, to further appreciation. It's amazing art. And then to think about the process and the pressure to get it all done, I think just adds more to it. So Heath, let me kind of turn our attention to you.
I was going to piggyback off of what Keith said a second ago. Like part of the new process, that taking another artist and then doing a sketch and then handing that off to them for it to be colored. That's definitely been new for me. And if there hasn't been, so that makes me have to be really clear with what I'm drawing. And like Keith said, I try to provide reference of where, because I'm doing this sketch, and this is kind of new for me, and then handing it off to be colored. And because I have a vision, I'm loving it, and I have an idea of where I want to take it to color. And the artists that have taken it, they've done a phenomenal job. And I've always been pleasantly surprised because I'm like, hopefully they add this. And if there has been a question, they'll contact me or email me, and they'll say, what were you thinking about the color of this or whatever?
Yeah.
And one of my weaknesses, as all artists have, is drawing hands. So I will take my phone and I'll take pictures of my hands for different things. That's why it probably looks a little too realistic, because I will take a lot of reference of those hands, just because that's something I still need to grow as an artist. And so I'll include pictures of my hands and the references like you talked about for the other artists to use as reference for tone in their final painting. So my phone has a lot of crazy pictures of hands. It looks.
If you ever lose your phone and somebody finds it and tries to go through the pictures to figure out whose it is, they're going to be like, what in the world?
Is this guy trying to be a hand model? I don't know.
So Heath, let's kind of, I want to hear from you. You've already kind of shared a little bit of the challenges that you face. I want to hear a little bit more about that. I want to hear about what joys you get from this process and art. And maybe, Keith and Heath, both of you, Keith, you referenced one of the images that you're excited about. I'd love for you guys to kind of share some of the images you're most excited about. I know I'm excited about some of the, what we would call Easter egg-ish kind of things in the art. So I want to give you a chance to talk, Heath, and just kind of nerd out as an artist for a little bit.
Okay. When I read the art description that you guys send me, ideas, images start popping into my head, and new challenges and new things I'd like to try. Different things, maybe scenes I've seen in a movie that may parallel in arrangement. And so originally growing up, I wanted to work as an animator. I wanted to originally work in the animation industry. And so in college, I studied animation, studied character design. Right out of sometime after I started working for Lifeway, I was asked back to my college to kind of give a talk to some kids about just like a professional talking to students type of thing. They're all elementary students. And so I had done some professional work in the animation industry, and then I started working for you guys as well. So I was really proud of the animation stuff, the character designs. I gave a little talk. I laid it all out on the table. And these kids, I remember these two girls, they, instead of going to the cool animation stuff that I was most proud of, they kept gravitating toward the Lifeway activity pages. And that was what was most engaging. And I think the Lord kind of used that moment to say, how do you want to use your talents? How are we going to be, what's going to be the best, how am I going to be the best steward of the talents the Lord's given me? So that really helped me to see, hey, I can make more impact for the kingdom of God using my talents, not making films that's very personally satisfying to me, but for the greater good of furthering the gospel into the hearts and lives of these young children. So that kind of steered me toward the path of just, hey, the Lord's providing work. in the Christian publishing industry. I make products that point people to Jesus. You know, and it's just, you know, the Lord really kind of used that to say, hey, this is where you need to use your energy and talents. In terms of like art that I'm most proud of, well, one of, I've got it pulled up in my Cintiq over here. So there was one that was a challenge, and I wanted to get it just right. Yeah, it's the one. It's Paul went to Rome, and the first take on it, it just didn't feel as dynamic as I wanted it to. It didn't. It didn't. I had this image in my head of how I wanted it, and it was kind of lacking. So I did another pass on it to really push the angles, and make it feel very dynamic and engaging. My goal as an artist, I want you to be captivated by these pictures, and so I want to stage it in a way that if like you know, in a way that makes you feel like you're watching a movie. And so that's one I had to do another pass over just because I wanted to, and I want to make it feel engaging.
And sometimes, Heath, let me just kind of pause there. Sometimes the source material provides the challenge in that. And we feel that as a team, especially when we get to Paul's letters, for example, Paul writing a letter, and it's like, okay, we've done this before, and we haven't been happy about it, but we didn't know another solution. It was Paul literally sitting at a table writing a letter. And so that's not really engaging as an idea, as a concept, and you do the best you can do with it. But sometimes it's our hands, we feel like they're tied. We're not big fans on the thought bubble idea. So we try to minimize that as much as we can. So sometimes some of the stories, there's very little action, or it's a matter of, we could suggest action that would be a really good image, but does it really support the teaching of the story? And so there's a tension we feel. So I'm sure you feel it as well when you get these requests and you're like, seriously, Paul just writing a letter? That's what you're giving me to go on?
It is. Yeah. And how can I make that, you know, how can I make it, you know, engaging, you know, where they want to go, where they see the image? Because I think I try to play the process of how these kids are looking at it. Because I've been, you know, I look at my boys. I think the images are like an on-ramp. They're looking at it, and I want them to go, tell me more about this image.
Yeah.
Sunday school teacher, you know, tell me more about what's going on here. What's happening? Why is this person so upset? Why is this person rejoicing? And tell me more about, hopefully tell me more about, you know, who Jesus is and what he's done. And
I think you do that great. These new, and let me just, before anything else, I think the art that you've done for 3 cycles has been fantastic. This 4th cycle, it's beyond that. So this is not a bad versus good. This has been a great versus even greater. And I think these images that we're seeing have that. I find myself staring at them much longer for that reason. They just pull you in. And I think it's the sketching, the artwork that you're doing, the coloring that's being done, the whole thing. To me, it will provide that when a teacher has that art showing it, and it will help the kids lock in all that much more and ask those questions. You know, why is Paul in that boat? Where is he? You know, what's going on here? Why is that man Jonah, you know, in the water? And so it just, I think you've done a great job with that to help advance what these are really for teaching the Bible.
I appreciate everyone.
One of the images that I really like is Jesus healed sickness. And this one, it's, you know, Jesus is walking through the crowd. All these people are gathering around him. But you have the older lady who's reaching out to touch, to touch Jesus. I think it says, touch the hem of his garment, I believe.
Yeah.
And in this image, the way he sketched it out, you have Jesus with all these people around him. You could tell they're excited. They're kind of crowding in. But the older lady is in the foreground. She's in a shadow, but she's reaching towards Jesus, and her hand is coming into the light as it's touching Jesus. And so with this image, you have her and your eye is being drawn down her shoulder and arm towards her hand, which is in the light, getting ready in the process to touch Jesus because she believed. So that's one of the ones that I have it up on the screen on the side. That's why I keep looking off to the side. But it's just an incredible, powerful image.
I think one of my favorites is God calling Abraham, which was, if not the first, one of the first illustrations that were done as a proof of concept. And just the image of that is just amazing. That's one I just could find myself staring at for quite a bit. I think the resurrection of Jesus is amazingly powerful. Mm-hmm. And a little fun thing, we asked Heath to have a callback or call ahead, I guess it would be chronology wise, of Lazarus. And so if you look at the image of Lazarus being raised from the dead and Jesus' resurrection, you will see they're very similar, and they were done on purpose. It was not because we got lazy. It's because we wanted to kind of make that connection. Hopefully a kid, as they're studying Lazarus and they see that image, and then we get to Jesus' resurrection, be like, oh, wait a minute, there's a connection here, because there's a connection theologically behind them. And so those little play things, again, Easter egg type, it's not quite an Easter egg, but that kind of idea, the shadowing and darkness that we use on horizon to denote judgment coming at times. And then I think we've also done the opposite, where there's been lightness in the horizon to show good things are coming. Just all these different elements that have added to depth and interest to the images. Heath, what are some, off the top of your head, what are some images, other ones that you find are drawn to the most?
Yeah, I really enjoyed when 33:1, when Paul became a Christian. Again, it's that use of light, of the Lord opening his eyes, the eyes of his heart, and he's born again, and he sees his sin, he sees the grace and love of Jesus for him. I try to capture that in that image. Like you said, Brian, the very first one, God's covenant with Abraham, I really love. Try to give kind of a fisheye lens of showing him and also showing the promises in the stars. I really like. I've really enjoyed all of them. Like I said, this has been a new style for me. I gravitate toward more cartoony, the activity page stuff. But it's been fun to do more realistic portions. Jesus taught about character on 23:1. I really like that one as well. Just seeing Jesus, teach and try. I mean, what would that be like? I'm trying to picture myself like hearing the words of our Savior, hearing his voice, and just like, there he is right before you. What would those people feel like? And so when the kids and the adult teachers see this, I want them to feel like they're there, and that joy and that experience of hearing Jesus talk to them. I really enjoyed that one. I kind of felt that, when I was creating it.
Yeah, and I think Heath, just for everybody again watching, just understand, Keith kind of mentioned this. You just did. One of our thought we've had a few people from time to time, not very often, who have reached out concerned that we use cartoon images for the Bible stories, because their concern has been it can confuse a child between what is real and what is not. Mm. And while I appreciate that concern, I don't necessarily think that it has a lot of weight, because I know my kids, I've got 3 kids. I've never had this problem with them understanding truth and fiction based on what is cartoon, or sometimes, the Marvel movies, for example. Keith, I might break your heart on this one too, but Marvel's not real. My kids know that, but it's real people on the screen, right? So there you go. So to me, while I don't want to kind of dismiss that completely, and again, I guess this speaks to it. We said, well, maybe if we did move them a little bit more realistic, that would help. And so that was one of our thought processes of saying, all right, let's give a little bit more realism, but it still has an inviting cartoon feel, because I know a lot of realistic Bible art just doesn't look good to me.
Mm.
A lot of, when you try to go hyper realistic, I don't think kids can engage with it as much.
Yeah,
So we have to remember these are still a tool.
exactly. Yeah, it's a tool, and hopefully the kids see that this is not literally what Jesus looks like.
Yes.
This is like an idea. You're trying to get a sense and feel of the story.
And that's,
It's
as
far
Keith
greater
said,
than anything
yeah,
that obviously
as
there.
Keith said, we want to be, we would reject, we know that Jesus was not Anglo, and he is often portrayed as that, and that is not honoring to the truth. It's not honoring to the church. So we did not want to, we know there's an art look that he cannot be or should not be, but that still, as Keith said, leaves a lot of latitude of, okay, well, we don't quite know what he might have looked like. And a lot of times we're looking at these Bible stories and we're like, okay, we don't know this. We hairstyles. Did women ever pull their hair into a ponytail? We don't know. So sometimes we have to take creative license guided by the scriptures. We'll never have anything in image that we know could not be, but there are a lot of times we have to kind of take a step and say, this is our best guess.
Yeah.
And so you can't go to everything in an illustration and show chapter and verse where it's supported, but hopefully you can never look at one of our images and say, this goes against this chapter and verse. So you have that creative license that we need, which could be a joy for you. It could be a headache for you at the same time. I know it can be for us as we're analyzing them. But we want to give something that's engaging. Keith mentioned before, I just wanted to double click on this. The concept of beauty, for example. What we are concerned about doing is having always, especially there are a few women in scripts that are told to us that they were beautiful. And if we always portray those beautiful women as the Western idea of a thin, shapely woman, we're presenting something in the minds and hearts of girls and boys about standards of beauty that we don't feel we want to contribute to. You can be beautiful and have different shapes of form. Beauty on Eastern standards were different than Western. So we have really tried to be careful. And activity pages, Heath, as you do activity pages, we always are concerned about this. And there we can bring in more ethnicities and differences and say, what about a child in a wheelchair? What about, all the kids can't be the same body type. Let's have differences of body types. So a kid looking at that activity page can say, there's somebody that looks like me. Because we want all the church to say, this is us. We're represented here. So we're excited about, moving this direction with our Bible art to be more realistic some level. All that to say, I guess, I'm grateful, Heath, for the job you do. We give so many different demands. Realistic, quick, all those things. And here's, make Paul writing a letter at a desk interesting. You do an amazing job in serving the church well, and I'm grateful for you. And I think people watching, if they could chime in right now, they would echo that.
I appreciate it, brother. It's it doesn't feel like work. It's an opportunity that through y'all the Lord's given me to draw biblical things and biblical stories. And kind of like you said earlier, these illustrations are not the final point. They're just to support the biblical content. And it's a tool that I'm very thankful to be able to work on.
Well, we're thankful for you, Heath, and I've appreciated you giving us time. And in the time that you have spent with us, you could have started sketching another sketch, and we took you away from that. So thank you for giving us the time to meet together and to share. I'm excited about people putting a face to the artwork that they've been seeing, especially people who have been using the Gospel Project for years, and finally say, "Oh, that's what the illustrator looks like," and hearing your story, hearing a little bit about the process. So we hope that it's been helpful. And I thank you, Heath and Keith, for joining us in this conversation. And again, I do want to thank you for listening and watching today. I do hope, again, that this conversation has been helpful and that you're looking forward to the next cycle that much more. You're looking forward to all the artwork It's an amazing artwork. You'll be seeing a lot of it soon. And I want to remind you to join us again next week when we share about another new and exciting part of the Gospel Project coming your way.